The old house groaned, its ancient timbers protesting against the weight of years. It shifted on its foundation, a sound like bones settling, echoing through the empty halls. The basement door, warped and scarred from decades of neglect, creaked open with a reluctant moan. It was a slow, agonizing yawn revealing a set of stairs that disappeared into the black, as if inviting the unwary to descend. A single bare bulb cast a sickly yellow light, barely penetrating the oppressive darkness that seemed to breathe from the bottom of the steps, its flicker a heartbeat in the gloom. The air grew thick and heavy, a cloying blend of mildew, damp earth, and something faintly metallic, like the scent of old blood. It was the smell of forgotten things, of secrets better left buried, of memories that had long since decayed. But curiosity, like a moth drawn to a flickering flame, drew a group of teenagers down those creaking steps and into the basement's cold embrace, their laughter fading into nervous whispers. They couldn't have known what waited for them in the darkness, the unseen eyes watching their every move. They didn't know this was more than a basement, more than just a room beneath the house. It was a hungry maw, ready to swallow them whole, a place where nightmares were born and fed on the unwary. There were 5 of them, huddled in a circle on the cold concrete floor. The room was dimly lit, shadows dancing on the walls, creating an eerie atmosphere that seemed to close in on them. The air hung thick and heavy with nervous anticipation, almost as if it were alive, pressing down on their shoulders and making it hard to breathe. Each held their breath, their eyes darting between the worn wooden planchette resting on the Ouija board and the faces of their friends. The silence was deafening, broken only by the occasional creak of the old house settling. There was Mark, the skeptic, rolling his eyes and muttering about childish games. He had always been the one to question everything, never believing in the supernatural. Next to him sat Jessica, her face pale, knuckles white as she gripped the edge of the board. She had been hesitant to join, but her curiosity had gotten the better of her. Across from them, Emily, the adventurous one, tried to mask her apprehension with a shaky smile. She was always up for a thrill, but this was pushing her limits. Her boyfriend David sat beside her, his hand protectively covering hers on the planchette. He was trying to be brave for her sake, but the fear in his eyes was unmistakable. Completing the circle was Sarah, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and fascination. She had always been intrigued by the unknown, and this was her chance to explore it. She was the one who had brought the Ouija board, convinced it was the key to contacting the other side. Her determination was palpable, and she had managed to convince the others to join her in this experiment. The air crackled with their combined anxieties, a potent cocktail of fear and nervous excitement. They were on the brink of something unknown, and the anticipation was almost too much to bear. Each of them wondered what would happen next, their minds racing with possibilities both thrilling and terrifying. "Is anyone there?" Sarah's voice, barely a whisper, broke the silence. The others held their breath, their gazes glued to the planchette. It sat motionless for a moment, an inanimate piece of wood. Then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, it began to move. It twitched, then glided across the board, stopping briefly on each letter. Hello. The word hung in the air, heavy and cold. The teenagers stared at each other, a mixture of disbelief and terror etched on their faces. Mark scoffed, attributing it to someone pushing the planchette, but the others weren't so sure. There was something about the way it moved, smooth and deliberate, that sent chills down their spines. The air grew colder, a draft swirling around their feet as if something unseen had been disturbed. The basement, never warm to begin with, grew noticeably colder. A damp chill, like a clammy hand, settled over the room. The single light bulb flickered, casting elongated shadows that danced on the walls, making the already cramped space feel smaller, more suffocating. Jessica shivered, pulling her sweater tighter around her. "It's freezing down here," she whispered, her voice trembling. David, trying to sound brave, told her it was just an old house, probably drafty. But even he couldn't ignore the prickling sensation on the back of his neck, the feeling of being watched by unseen eyes. The Ouija board seemed to hum with an energy of its own, the planchette vibrating slightly under their fingertips. Something was different. The air felt charged, electric with anticipation. "Who are you?" Emily asked, her voice small and hesitant. The planchette, as if responding to her fear, began to move with renewed purpose. It zipped across the board, stopping briefly on each letter, spelling out a name that sent a wave of terror through the group. Zalgo. The name hung in the air, heavy and malevolent. No one dared to speak. Mark, his skepticism finally cracking, stammered, "What does that even mean?" But deep down, they all knew. This wasn't some harmless prank. This was something else entirely. Something dark. Something evil. A low growl, guttural and chilling, echoed from the darkness beyond the circle of light. The teenagers froze, their blood turning to ice in their veins. Then, 2 points of crimson light materialized in the shadows, like embers burning in the dark. The eyes pulsed with a malevolent energy, watching them, studying them. A wave of pure terror washed over the group. Jessica whimpered, burying her face in her hands. David, his bravado gone, instinctively pulled her close. Mark, his face ashen, muttered a string of apologies, begging whatever it was to leave them alone. But the eyes only seemed to burn brighter, their malevolent gaze fixed on the terrified teenagers. The growl intensified, morphing into a guttural voice that seemed to ooze from the very walls of the basement. "You have summoned me," it rasped, each word sending shivers down their spines. "And now, you will face the consequences." Panic gripped the teenagers. They scrambled to their feet, knocking over the Ouija board in their haste to escape. The planchette clattered to the floor, landing face down. But the basement door, which had swung open so easily before, wouldn't budge. It was as if an unseen force was holding it shut. They were trapped, their escape route sealed by something ancient and evil. Section 8. Trapped. They rattled the doorknob, kicked at the warped wood, but the door wouldn't give. It was like pushing against a wall of solid rock. Their hearts pounded in their chests, each breath a shallow gasp. The temperature plummeted further, the air thick with the stench of sulfur. The shadows seemed to writhe and coil around them, tendrils of darkness reaching out like grasping claws. The 2 crimson eyes bored into them, filled with a chilling amusement. They were mice caught in a trap, their every move observed by the predator that had lured them into its lair. Fear, raw and primal, coursed through their veins. They were at the mercy of something ancient and evil, something that had been waiting for them in the darkness. Section 9. The Promise. The voice, closer now, boomed around them, shaking the very foundation of the house. "You sought knowledge," it said, a low rumble that vibrated in their chests. "And knowledge you shall have." The shadows swirled faster, coalescing around the spot where the eyes burned with unholy light. The air crackled with energy, raising goosebumps on their skin. They huddled together, their eyes squeezed shut, bracing for what they knew was coming. The voice, now a whisper directly in their ears, sent chills down their spines. "I will show you things you can't even imagine," it hissed. "Things that will haunt your waking hours and torment your dreams." Section 10. A Glimmer of Hope. Just when the teenagers thought all hope was lost, a glimmer of light appeared in the darkness. It wasn't much, just a faint glow emanating from Sarah's backpack. She had dropped it in their panicked scramble, and now it lay open, revealing a small silver crucifix nestled among her belongings. The crucifix, a gift from her grandmother, pulsed with a soft, warm light, a stark contrast to the cold, malevolent energy that permeated the basement. The growls and hisses seemed to falter, the shadows recoiling slightly from the sacred symbol. Could this be their salvation? Could a simple crucifix hold back the forces of darkness that threatened to consume them? Section 11. The haunting continues. The demonic presence recoiled, its guttural growl laced with a hint of frustration. It was as if the entity was momentarily thwarted, its malevolent intentions interrupted by an unseen force. The shadows retreated, the glowing red eyes flickering momentarily before vanishing into the darkness. The room, once filled with an oppressive presence, now felt eerily empty, as if the very air had been sucked out. The basement door creaked open, as if released from an unseen grip. The sound echoed through the house, a chilling reminder of the unseen forces at play. The teenagers, their bodies trembling with terror and adrenaline, didn't hesitate. Their eyes wide with fear, they exchanged frantic glances, silently agreeing on the need to escape. They scrambled out of the basement, each desperate breath of victory. Their footsteps echoed loudly, a cacophony of fear and urgency, as they raced towards the safety of the upper floors. But they knew, deep down, that this wasn't over. The sense of dread clung to them, a dark shadow that refused to be shaken off. The experience had marked them, branded their souls with the chilling memory of that night. Their eyes, once filled with youthful innocence, now held a haunted look, a reflection of the horrors they had witnessed. The basement, once a place of childish curiosity, was now a symbol of terror, a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of their ordinary lives. It had transformed from a place of innocent exploration to a chamber of nightmares. And the Ouija board? It lay forgotten on the cold concrete floor, a silent testament to the night they learned that some doors are best left unopened, some knowledge too terrifying to possess. The board, once a tool of curiosity, now seemed like a portal to unimaginable horrors. For they had glimpsed the abyss, and the abyss had glimpsed back. The encounter had left an indelible mark on their souls, a reminder that the line between our world and the unknown is perilously thin.